Hello, everyone. This is Theater. And yesterday on the stream, I had an idea about what we can do when it comes to Astroneer and having monsters or animals of some sort in the game. So let's take a quick look. Here's basically what I was thinking. We already have flora. Flora is plants, right? And so we have all kinds of plants in the game. But how about animals, right? Some monsters to spice it up a little bit, right? Astroneer is currently a really chill game, and I would like a little bit more spice, make it more interesting. So here's what we have. We have defensive flora, which basically only interacts with you if you come near it, step on it, those kind of things. And we have offensive flora, things that can't move. They're sort of like sitting there statically, but they will attack you when you get closer. So what can we do here? The idea was we have a cow, let's start simple. Let's just start with a cow, so we have this cow, but since we are in space, it's going to be a space cow. So let's make it pink, for example, very simple. No thrills here, but we don't really necessarily have to think of it as a cow, right? Like, for example, in the Elder Scrolls Morrowind, we have male and female cows, respectively. They're called netches. So there is a bull netch on the left, I believe, and a betty netch, a female cow, on the right. And they sort of float, and they have those tendrils or those tentacles where they get food. They can't really fly super high, but they're flying cows, So we can use our imagination on the cows, We don't need to be like restricted to just a cow. But let's start simple, right? Let's just start with the cow. And so what do we do with it, right? Well, a cow is a defensive fauna. Fauna are animals, so defensive means it will like do cow stuff all day long, right? And not really bother the player. It will be there, kind of like the plants are, but it won't do much, right? Typically, it wouldn't really interact with anything, right? It wouldn't interact with the grass or with plants. That's maybe version 2, it can start eating things. But when it eats things, then we need to also take a look at how it would regrow the grass, right? So I'm not super sure if that's an Astroneer, right? If we can regrow things. So let's look at the defensive fauna, and let's just say, we need to put animals around a planet, So how do we do that? Let's just space them out sort of evenly, right? To not make it super crowded. That's like the simplest way of doing it, right? We just go and space out the animals and be done, However, we can get more fancy, right? For example, we can have a biome affinity. So cows like grass, this is grass here, so the cow likes the grass, so we place the cow near the grass, right? Simple. So for example, if we have a mountain range, right? And mountains are made out of rock, not grass, right? But let's say there's like a little bit of grass there, so it's okay, right? We could put a cow close to the grass, even though it's sort of out of its biome, but there is some grass, so the cow will be happy, We can also look at a social affinity when we place animals. So cows sort of like are herd animals, right? They like each other. So we just keep placing cows, and we can next to each other, and we can sort of have a rule that, let's say we need to fill up a planet with cows, and there's a 70% chance that if a cow is being placed into a certain region, that it will be placed, close to other cows because they like each other. And so, you just keep on doing that. Then, 30% the cow will be placed by itself, and it will sort of build its own herd. However, as we grow the herd, right, we need to kind of keep in mind that these can get large, and so we have to have an upper maximum when it comes to herds. Otherwise, there will be just too much, right? I want to keep Astroneer sort of like a chill game. Too many cows, not that good, So that's the cow, that's how it works. Let's take a look at making the cow move a little bit, right? So that's the cow, and it has sort of like a movement circle, right? That's this green circle here. This is where the cow moves around, and it's not going to go outside the circle, right? Because you don't want the cow to sort of gather at locations where there's just too many and they're just piling up, you know, like we saw earlier. So the cow generally is not going to leave this green circle, and it's just sort of like in its normal movement, it will stay within that. And you know, the cows, they are you know, herd animals and uh, uh, um, herbivores, right? So they just kind of meander around. They move around randomly within that circle, but they stay within that circle. However, there is an aggravated movement circle, right? The aggravated movement circle is a little bit larger than the green circle, and it basically means that a cow will pursue if it's being you know, messed with. You know, you like poke it, or you mess with the cow. It's not going to like that. Maybe it's just like some of the animals, you come too close. You know, it's like, hey, dude, you need to get out of here, right? I don't want you to be near me, right? For example, the cow could have cow babies, right? So then it has a higher affinity to be aggressive and sort of defend its territory a little bit, right? So it has that orange circle where it has aggravated movement, right? So how do you aggravate a cow, right? So the cow is doing, you know, regular day-to-day cow stuff, like, you know, being happy with grass, and then, you know, the player comes and you know, pokes it, and then, you know, the cow is not happy about that, you know, and so the cow is going to like follow the player and is going to try to push the player out of that green circle, right? And in doing so, it is willing to go a little bit further. Um, to get rid of the player, right? To make him go away. And we can also think of it like this, right? Like, for example, if the player has an ability to hurt the cow, right? That a hurt cow maybe has a lower percentage of you know, attacking the player back. So let's say a healthy cow has a, you know, a 95% chance that when it's messed with, it will go after the player, right? But then if the player somehow manages to hurt the cow, maybe the cow is changing its mind, you know, and saying like, hey, I have the ouchies. I don't want to go after the player anymore. Maybe it only has like a 30% chance, right, to go after the player in that situation. So that's how I'm looking at this. Then let's say within that orange circle, right, if the player is running away from the cow, it's going to lose interest in pursuing the player, right? So this can happen within the green circle if the player is faster than the animal, right? The player simply runs away. The animal says like, you know what, I can't even see this player anymore, or he's far away now where I think I'm cool with him being over there and me being here, and the cow is happy and it stays within that green circle, right? But if it exits that green circle, let's say, you know, the animal's the same speed as the player, or maybe even faster, it will go after the player, but it will sort of like lose automatically interest within that orange circle, right? And if that happens, what we do now is that wherever that spot is where the animal decided that, hey, you know what, it's not worth pursuing the player anymore, there's the new origin. You know, and so the new origin now becomes where the cow is going to live its life, its happy cow life, and doing cow things from now on. So that also has the advantage that, let's say, you want to clear an area of animals, but you want a peaceful solution to conflict. You don't want to just kill the animals, because then they're just going to respawn and you have to deal with them again, right? You sort of can move them out a little bit, so that you can build your player base there and not worry about cows running all over the place and ruining your streams. So there's that, right? So that was the defensive fauna, right? But when we looked at flora, we had defensive flora and we had offensive flora, right? So the idea that I had during the stream was we need something that is an offensive fauna. So animals that are offensive, right? And so what I came up with is a panther. That was like literally the first thing that came to my mind, right? But since we are in space, you know, it has to be a space panther. So boom, there, space panther, right? It doesn't matter what it is, but it's sort of like the nature of this animal is a little bit different. It's going to actively pursue and is more aggressive. You know, it just doesn't stay in an area and it like does offensive things, right? So here we have offensive fauna. We have our panther there, right? So what does the panther do? Well, the panther has still the green circle where it moves around that green circle and it doesn't leave it, right? Because we don't want an area to be overcrowded with animals, right? But the panther also has an orange circle where it's willing to pursue other animals or the player. And this orange area is maybe a little bit wider. It's larger because the panther is willing to pursue when it's aggressive a little bit further than a cow does, right? A cow is just, it wants to go back to eating grass. The panther here, that's its nature. It wants to mess with other animals and the player, So there's that. So when we look at that, right, the panther moves also randomly within that green area, but maybe the movement pattern is a little bit different, right? The cow was sort of like meandering and just looking at grass and being happy. And the panther is sort of like in a wider pattern, right? It's moving in straighter lines just because it's looking for trouble. That's what it does, So when we look at that, the panther is going to attack literally all other animals, right? If they come close enough. So it will attack cows, it will attack the player. But I was thinking about that. Maybe it's not going to attack other panthers, because they know that their business means they're in the business of fighting, So maybe with other panthers, it doesn't do that. The same applies with an offensive fauna as well. That if you manage to lose it somehow and it's still alive and you're still alive, it's going to have a new origin, right? And it follows the same principle as the cow. So you could move away even offensive or aggressive animals from your base, so that you don't have to worry that you step out of your base and there's like a panther in your face. So you can sort of clear out an area as well with peaceful means, right? You don't have to hurt them. So one other thing that I was thinking, if like maybe two offensive animals are coming close to each other, maybe they don't attack each other. That would be like the simple thing to do, right? But not that interesting. Maybe what they do is they sort of have a duel. They just kind of screech and hiss and roar at each other, but they don't attack each other, right? So there's the possibility of playing this a little bit differently instead of just like murdering everything inside. So if two big ones, if two offensive animals meet each other, they know that this is not going to end well for either one, and it's not going to go further than that. Another situation is if you have different types of animals, right? Maybe you have like one big monster. It might look at as the panther as food, and it will, aggressively pursue it. While the panther is thinking that, it's maybe just hissing and growling and generally avoiding the big monster. So you could have these kind of dynamics as well, right? So now, when we look at what happens if one of those, fauna things dies, right? Like, so the cow dies or the panther dies, how do we handle that, right? So, in generally, we want to sort of evenly distribute it so that we don't get clusters and you have like animals on top of animals and like big, piles of those animals and big areas where it's just like, it looks unnatural. We want to generally have them distributed evenly. So if one of them, is no longer with us, then there's sort of like a gap there. And we simply keep following the rules from above, where we just go and populate this area and make sure that everything is back to normal, So that's how I'm thinking about that. Hope you guys like this. And, if you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments. Really appreciate that. And so you guys take care.